there was a game. It was one of the best games ever made by Games Workshop, and it was called Spacehulk. And way back when it first came out, got the original game, got the Deathwing expansion, got the Genestealer expansion. I always dreamed of having my very own 3D board with which to take the Genestealers and Mask of the Terminators, or take the Terminators and one day overcome and destroy the Spacehulk. And so 10 years ago I built this board, which is now going through severe upgrades. So here are some of the original pieces from the build that I did, and I'll just give you a rough breakdown of what they are. So all of it's made out of this stuff, which you can see I've stuck mesh to one side of, just using super glue. And this stuff is, well, in the UK it's foam board. Don't know, it might be called something different in the US or other countries, but in the UK this is known as foam board, and it's just, many of you will have probably used this before, but it's a paper / thin card on both outer skins with a foam core. It's very easy to cut, very easy to work with. And so this is a 2 square spot, but as you can see I haven't put any of the plastic over the top. And then in order to do this, the square effect, I've literally cut 3mm strips of plastic out, plastic card or styrofoam if you're in the US, and this is black plastic card or styrofoam, and that gives you this nice effect. And as you can see here, there's an alternative to the mesh finish, being using plastic card / styrofoam squares and just cropping the corners off each of the squares. This is built on a 45mm square principle, built it before GW released their it was only a couple of years, mind, before GW released their range of what's it called? It's gone from my brain. It will come back to me later. Stuff where you go. It's stuff for 40k. It's the map tiles for 40k for inside spaceships and such forth, which is kind of like Spacehulk with 40k rules. I'd rather they went the other way and developed Spacehulk as 40k. But that's me. And then I made these doors because I always wanted doors that were open and closing, and they're very simple. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the construction and then show you what I've done with it recently. So here's your basic piece, and the same rules apply to everything. As I said before, it's the styrofoam base. This is 45mm squares, so it's 45 by 135mm. Always measuring in millimeters in this case because it's more accurate. And if you look from the side, you can just see where the wire mesh is sticking out, and that's just been super glued, cut to fit, super glued, and then these have been stuck on top. Here's the tile, just simple tiles, cut out 40. Well, these are 43mm squares, I think. Because it's a 45mm structure, I wanted gaps in between each one so you could be able to see through them. And then just notching the corners at about 3mm in, maybe 4 or 5mm, but I think it's more like 3mm. And sticking them down gives you the spacing. Again, it's just straight on the foam board, but I found an easy way of doing this. Didn't think of it myself because I'm a dumbass, but I was watching the Terrain Tutor. Check him out if you are interested in pretty much everything you want to know about making terrain, in all honesty. This is maybe a little bit more specialist, but he's got loads of interesting stuff. But through watching his videos, I learned about this. So if you just want to do it simple and easy, just get your allspike out, or use the back of a knife, or use maybe even just a cutlery knife, anything which is like metal, which has got a clean edge but isn't actually sharp, so you can score the top, and just score squares in. You could do this on big sheets of it if you wanted to do like say a grid map for D&D for argument's sake, or anything really. You just wanted a gigantic room for your Spacehulk so that you could actually have a proper firefight with some Genestealers, although that would be very unfair on the Genestealers. The only advantage they have in the Spacehulk is the fact that there's lots of corridors. So yeah, this is the alternative way. It's swift, easy. I'm going to be doing a whole load like this myself, just because it is swift and easy. But then there's also doors. So this is my basic door premise, and now looking back, hindsight, dumbass, there are things I'd do differently. But I'm going to carry on using these doors because they're already made, and to be quite honest with you, time, inclination, effort. So the basic door, as you can see, it's just 3 layers. This is all 5mm foam board, by the way, 5mm depth. It's 3 layers. There's a wedge in the bottom, or a bit in the bottom. So if I take the door out, you can see there's this bit down here. And then there's a wedge just in the bottom either side, which is just a separate little block. So this is essentially just using almost like offcuts, just to make sure to provide the gap. And then the door was actually the piece that was cut out here. So all of the pieces that were cut out, which is make your cutting as accurate as possible as you're making them. Again, using offcuts, just do tabs on the top. And it's not perfect, but it fills the door, and that's what I would do differently now. I would always cut out doors separately, probably even just make them squares, and make them squares which are bigger than the area that I want to fill, because then you can get onto etching them. And that's the basic door. So I made this about 10 years ago. Never really finished it, as you can see. It's just sort of lots of bits and pieces. Started painting arrows on here and there for when I wanted indications of certain things. But recently, I've been playing FFG's Star Wars RPG, and going to be running a campaign, and decided, you know what, I'm going to dig it out and finish it up because it's a great opportunity to use it. A friend of mine has a lot of the miniatures from Imperial Assault, and so I want to make it cool and really like things to be pretty if I can make them pretty. So that led me to doing this and actually sitting down and finishing it off. So as you can see, all the pieces have been painted. I've left the mesh because quite like the mesh, just mesh against black, that's fine. Simple painting around the edges, and also various details which I'll just go through. So first up, all of these, they've been filled. And then they've just been painted, so I just painted these with the framework green. And also I've bound the edges, so the edges have been bound actually just with a heavy weight of paper. Not even that heavy a weight of paper in honesty, it's probably about maybe 120 grams per square metre. So if you don't know, paper is measured as such as by weight per square metre. So really heavy stock paper would be like 300-350 grams plus. Your standard copy paper is about 90 grams per square metre, whereas this was about 120, so it's like not quite double your standard copy paper in terms of thickness. And it just cleans up the edges and gets rid of the crappy visible edge. We've got the room then. This is a tiled room, and as you can imagine, the mesh rooms will be done in the same way as the mesh floors in the corridors. So I just wanted to show this. This is just a Space Wolf grey with a bunch of grey dabbed, Space Wolf grey laid flat. So you just got flat panels of Space Wolf grey. I've run the same green that I've used to run around the edges of the mesh panels for the framework that the mesh is stacked in to cover this. And by the way, I am using green because in the original Spacehulk, the box cover, everything's in green, and I wanted to go with that. And if you notice, my Gene Stealers are also green because I really don't like the blue purple. No, I do like the blue purple combo, but when I was doing my Gene Stealers way back when, which I'm nowhere near finished by the way, I've finished like the ones that you saw, that's it. I've got a lot of them as well. I've got like 120 or 200 odd Gene Stealers, which I'm probably going to do a fast paint thing on. So that'll happen soon too. But that's by the by. So I laid up flat Space Wolf grey on each panel, and then I used some just cold grey from the Vallejo game colour range, and just semi-dry brushed it on just so you get a bit of muck going on it. And then I used a green black ink combo, covered everything pretty thinly. Green black, 1 part green, 1 part black, 2 parts green, 1 part black, 2 parts water. just enough to cover everything over, and then dabbed the middle away a bit with a bit of tissue paper, just to create like this old mucky, it's a Spacehulk effect. Finally then, we've got the doors, and I've gone for this, well, this is using, it's the Vallejo, I think it's Game Colour tin bits, which is the coppery colour, and then just using silver mixed with dregs of tin bits, but it's the model colour silver, and that's really very light silver. It's very similar to like a mithril silver, if you like, very bright, very light. Again, just to maintain the kind of green, sort of coppery kind of look that's often associated with Gene Steelers, but also that's associated with those kind of old school early days Spacehulk. And I've also etched the doors, so you can see all the panels I've etched, put in a control panel. That's just lime green with a luminous green over the top and around the edges. And for the minute I've just duplicated it at both sides. I will ultimately do various doors. This was just an experiment just to see how easy it was to do. And you'll notice that with this, I have not done the foam edging. If you did want to do foam edging, you just get some filler, water filler down so it'll sit into the foam, paste it over and then sand it back, but I'm not going to be doing that because it's just massively time consuming, and right now I don't have much time on my hands, unfortunately. And not only that, but and also, why just have these pieces as Spacehulk when you can also have the pieces for normal ground terrain? So I've got my interiors and exteriors, just flip them over, and this will also lead to well, one, you'll be able to do maps like this, possibly use it for D&D. Gives you outdoors, gives you indoors, that was the main thing. Or even I mean, it means you can really limit characters and outdoor stuff. You don't give them just open spaces, but also it gives you the transitions between indoors and outdoors, because you can do that instead of having your doors just on interiors. You can have this way. You could set up buildings or what have you. You don't even necessarily have to do that. You could just use the trapping technique, where you just have the square so it's butted up against, and if you have more of them. But it means that you can do winding forest paths with perhaps the odd way going off. We'll end up with a whole load of these, and with the squares, so you could have a whole mishmash of arrangements anyway. So I'm just going to go through over the next few weeks. It's just the build process where and show you the techniques I'm using for doing each part, and the flocking process and how I'm stopping them, because the thing about this stuff is it warps. You can see it's got a bit of a warp in it. It just has to be flexed enough to be mostly flat, and it'll go flat with time. So this is the next project, and I just wanted to take you through the kind of elements that would make it up. And I hope you think this is a cool idea, and I hope that it's of some interest and use to you in terms of if you are a keen Spacehulk player or what have you. This is designed for Terminator bases, like 40mm bases. That's why I did it on the 45mm schema rather than the 2-inch schema, which you'll find in, I still can't remember what it's called and it's really bugging me. But either way, this was designed for playing Spacehulk with Terminators against Gene Steelers, so it's only really meant to easily fit a 40mm base so that you can use your Terminators that you use in 40k in Spacehulk, and it sizes up the board a bit. But if you're used to playing a 6'x4" area, then this is absolutely comparable to a standard Spacehulk, unless you're trying to play like a much bigger map layout than you'd normally find in a Spacehulk game. So I hope you find this some interest and some use, and even just from this information maybe you can put together a whole load of stuff that you want to do. But either way, in the next week or two you're going to get a few videos just about the conversion and completion of all this and all the bits and pieces that have gone into making it done and ready to go. So thank you for watching, have a good one and take care. Bye bye.